Michael Schumacher. He should have won it all at the 1997 European Grand Prix, but instead it became one of the worst scandals in Formula One history. October 26, 1997, at Jerez, Spain, the final race of the season, and Schumacher held a 1-point lead over Jacques Villeneuve in the championship fight, 78-77. Simple math: finish ahead of Villeneuve, win the title. On lap 48 at the dry sack corner, Villeneuve made his move, trying to pass for the lead and championship. Schumacher turned straight into him. His front right wheel slammed into Villeneuve's side pod, like he was trying to punt him off the track. Martin Brundle called it out live. "That didn't work, Michael. You hit the wrong part of him, my friend." Meanwhile, French broadcaster Jacques Lafitte was less diplomatic, calling Schumacher "quel con," what an idiot, on television. The plan failed in a big way. Schumacher's Ferrari got stuck in the gravel, and he was done. Villeneuve kept going, finished third, and won the championship with 81 points. Race stewards called it a racing incident and took no action. The media didn't believe it. Germany's Bild wrote, "He played for high stakes and lost everything, the World Championship and his reputation for fair play." Italy's La Repubblica called it shameful. The FIA stepped in. On November 11th, they had a hearing. They disqualified Schumacher from the 1997 championship standings. Rare move. He kept his race wins but lost his second-place finish to Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Jean Todt later said Schumacher initially thought Villeneuve caused the crash. Then he watched the TV footage. "It doesn't look that way, I'm afraid," Todt admitted. This wasn't his first questionable move. The 1994 collision with Damon Hill had already raised eyebrows about his tactics when championships were on the line. The FIA tightened rules on intentional contact after this. The scandal remained part of his reputation for many years. All that desperation for his first title with Ferrari, and he left with only a damaged reputation. 2002 Austrian Grand Prix. Ferrari's team orders mess that had fans booing, and Michael Schumacher wishing he could disappear into the track. Rubens Barrichello had dominated from pole position, leading most of the 71 laps at the A1 ring in Spielberg. Then on lap 63, Jean Todt got on the radio with orders that would blow up the sport. Let Schumacher pass, help his championship lead. Barrichello fought it until the final lap. Then he slowed down dramatically before the finish line, handing Schumacher the win by 0.182 seconds. Here's what it made a weird decision. Schumacher had already won 4 of the first 5 races. The move was completely unnecessary. Fans went absolutely nuts. Loud boos during the podium ceremony, while Schumacher stood there looking miserable. He broke protocol by giving Barrichello the winner's trophy and letting him take the top step during the Italian anthem. Austrian Chancellor Wolfgang Schüssel, there to present trophies, looked as awkward as everyone felt. Media destroyed Ferrari. Juan Pablo Montoya didn't hold back. Michael doesn't really have any challenge in the championship, so what are they so nervous about? The FIA responded immediately. On June 26th, they hit Ferrari, Schumacher, and Barrichello with a $1 million fine for breaking podium protocol. Each paid $166,667 immediately, with the rest suspended for a year. Barrichello later said he was robbed and claimed Ferrari threatened his seat if he didn't comply. The whole mess led to team orders being banned in 2003, though they lifted that rule in 2011. Meanwhile, Schumacher still won the 2002 title with 144 points to Barrichello's 77. Years later, Jean Todt admitted it was a mistake, and Ross Brawn called it a negative consequence for F1. The 2005 US Grand Prix. This one is unbelievable. Formula One basically committed public suicide in front of 130,000 paying customers. The disaster started Friday when Toyota's Ralf Schumacher and Ricardo Zonta crashed after their left rear Michelin tyres failed in turn 13, a high-speed banked corner. The track's 2004 resurfacing and new rules against tyre changes made the Michelins risky. Michelin admitted the obvious. Their tyres couldn't survive more than 10 laps in that corner without becoming death traps. Their solution? Stick a chicane in turn 13 to slow cars down. Charlie Whiting and the FIA shut that down immediately. Can't really blame them. Why should Bridgestone teams like Ferrari, Jordan and Minardi get penalised because Michelin brought the wrong equipment? Race day arrived with fans expecting a proper show. Instead, they watched all 14 Michelin teams withdraw after the formation lap, like they'd suddenly remembered something urgent. 6 cars remained to race. Michael Schumacher won what newspapers called a yawner. Furious fans threw debris on track. The media called it a farce. Paul Stoddart called it F1's darkest day. Bernie Ecclestone admitted it was a complete disaster. The fallout was swift and brutal. Michelin faced lawsuits, refunded fans, and offered free 2006 tickets. The FIA found teams guilty of failing to bring suitable tyres, but noted strong mitigating circumstances and dropped charges. Didn't help. F1's American dream collapsed. No more Formula One races after 2007, until Austin finally brought the sport back in 2012. All because nobody wanted to compromise on a chicane. The 2007 Spygate scandal. Formula One's biggest spy scandal started with an unhappy Ferrari employee and ended with the largest fine in sports history. Nigel Stepney was dissatisfied with Ferrari. The technical director felt sidelined after years of service and decided to do something about it. He leaked 780 pages of Ferrari's most sensitive technical data to Mike Coughlin, McLaren's chief designer. Not exactly subtle. That's when everything became very complicated. Coughlin's wife Trudy tried to photocopy the documents at a local Surrey shop in March 2007. The staff spotted Ferrari logos all over the pages and tipped off the team. Ferrari launched an investigation and found the papers at Coughlin's house. Yep, all of them. Ferrari fired Stepney immediately. McLaren suspended Coughlin but claimed they never used the stolen data. The first FIA hearing on July 26 seemed to back that up. No penalty, case closed. But then Fernando Alonso got involved. The Hamilton-Alonso partnership was already toxic. After Alonso's pit lane tantrum in Hungary, where he intentionally blocked Lewis Hamilton during qualifying, things exploded behind the scenes. Alonso began to hint at emails that showed McLaren used Ferrari's secrets. Ron Dennis panicked. Those emails showed McLaren engineers discussing Ferrari's fuel loads, tyre strategies, and technical details. The cat was out of the bag. The media called it Spygate, comparing it to Watergate. Dennis tried damage control, admitting, "We have never denied that the information from Ferrari was in the personal possession of one of our employees." The second hearing on September 13th was brutal. McLaren got hit with a $100 million fine, though they only paid about $31 million after offsets. They lost all their Constructors' Championship points for 2007. Max Mosley was being serious. The evidence was overwhelming. Mike Coughlin paid €180,000. 3 McLaren engineers got fined €150,000 each, though those charges were dropped in 2009. Meanwhile, McLaren's 2008 car got scrutinised line by line to make sure no stolen Ferrari data was used. Kimi Räikkönen won the 2007 Drivers' Championship for Ferrari by 1 point. But the scandal hurt team relations for years. It also showed that F1 takes intellectual property theft seriously. This was pure espionage in the pits. Secret documents, betrayal, driver rivalries, and a massive fine. High-stakes drama that made business spying look like child's play. Nelson Piquet Jr. crashed his car on purpose in 2008. It took almost a year before people discovered it, but when the truth came out, everything turned into a big mess. September 28th, Singapore Grand Prix, lap 14. Piquet's Renault R28 goes straight into the wall at turn 17. Perfect timing. Fernando Alonso had pitted early and was buried in 15th place. The safety car comes out, shuffles the field, and suddenly Alonso's winning from nowhere. Piquet blamed heavy fuel. Driver error, he said. Just a mistake. For months, nobody questioned it. Then, in 2009, Renault dropped Piquet and he decided things were about to get messier. He and his dad went to the FIA with a story that would blow everything up. The crash was deliberate, they claimed. Flavio Briatore and Pat Siemens had ordered it to help Alonso. "I was asked by Mr. Flavio Briatore to deliberately crash my car," Piquet said. Not great. The investigation moved fast. By September 16th, Renault announced they wouldn't contest the charges. Briatore and Siemens were out. 5 days later, the FIA hit Renault with conspiracy charges and a 2-year suspended disqualification. Both got banned. Briatore indefinitely, Siemens for 5 years. A French court overturned both bans in 2010, but settlements kept them sidelined until 2013. Meanwhile, Piquet and his dad won a libel case against Renault and collected damages plus an apology. The scandal damaged F1's integrity and exposed race fixing at the highest level. It killed Piquet Jr.'s career while Alonso walked away clean. Meanwhile, Felipe Massa was still angry years later. That safety car had caused a pit stop error that cost him points. He lost the 2008 championship to Lewis Hamilton by 1 point. As of 2023, he's exploring legal action. Bernie Ecclestone later admitted they'd tried to cover the whole thing up. "We wanted to protect the sport and save it from a huge scandal." Yep, that worked out great. The Bahrain Grand Prix, a routine race weekend, turned into Formula One's most shameful political scandals. February 14th, 2011. Bahrain's Day of Rage protests began, and that March 13th race suddenly looked like a terrible idea. Medical staff abandoned the circuit to deal with actual emergencies. The GP2 Asia Series also cancelled. Hard to celebrate racing when people are fighting for democracy. Bernie Ecclestone and the FIA weren't ready to give up. They floated an October 30th reschedule, but the teams shut that down immediately. Mark Webber and Red Bull led the resistance, backed by a 300,000 signature petition about human rights violations. That was the end of that. But 2012 was different. Despite ongoing clashes between protesters and security forces, Formula One decided to go ahead on April 22nd. Teams were nervous about safety. Tear gas was flying in nearby neighbourhoods. And activist Abdul Hadi Al-Khawaja was 70 days into a hunger strike. Not great timing for a racing celebration. The Independent labelled it one of the most controversial races in the history of the sport. Ecclestone kept saying everything was fine. Damon Hill visited Bahrain and announced F1 could return with a clear conscience. Meanwhile, Amnesty International was documenting ongoing abuses and calling the promised reforms inadequate. The race went off without major incidents, but the damage was done. Formula One had chosen its $40 million annual hosting fee over human rights concerns. Bahrain stayed on the calendar, but the questions about the sport's priorities didn't go away. The 2019 Ferrari engine scandal. Starting with Belgium in late August, Ferrari's cars began flying past everyone on the straights like they'd found some sort of cheat code. Charles Leclerc hit 345 km/h at Spa's Kemmel Straight, crushing Mercedes by 10 km/h. Ferrari then rattled off 7 straight pole positions and 3 wins, mostly on tracks where horsepower was everything. This was the same Ferrari that Mercedes had been embarrassing since 2014. 6 years of getting schooled, then suddenly they are untouchable on power circuits. Mercedes and Red Bull didn't believe it. The fuel flow meter became ground zero for suspicion. F1 rules cap fuel delivery at 100 kg/h, using a device that samples flow 2,200 times per second. Teams thought Ferrari might be cheating the system. They suspected the team created electrical noise to confuse the meter's signal. They also believed Ferrari timed fuel pulses to sneak in extra delivery. More fuel meant more power. Ferrari had plenty of both. The FIA kept firing technical directives at teams all season long, essentially saying knock it off without proving anyone was cheating. Ferrari's engines passed every inspection, but the suspicions stuck. Then came February 28, 2020. On the last day of pre-season testing in Barcelona, the FIA said they had a secret deal with Ferrari. This came after looking into their 2019 power unit. 93 words of pure nothing. No penalties, no violations, just Ferrari agreeing to vague technical commitments. 7 rival teams lost their minds. Joint statement, legal threats, demands for transparency. The secret deal was unacceptable, they said. Toto Wolff called it a sour taste. Christian Horner probably had stronger words behind closed doors. The 2020 season was Ferrari's reality check. At Spa, where Leclerc had dominated in 2019, he qualified 13th and finished outside the points. His qualifying time was 0.47 seconds slower than his pole the year before. Top speed plummeted from 345 to 333 km/h. Ferrari dropped from 3rd in the championship with 504 points to 6th with just 131, their worst season in decades. Meanwhile, the FIA quietly installed a second fuel flow meter for 2020, complete with encrypted signals and randomized sampling. Total coincidence, they claimed. Ferrari maintains they never cheated. The settlement details remain locked away, and everyone else is still wondering what exactly Ferrari agreed to stop doing. The 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, December 12th at Yas Marina Circuit, and Formula One was going to give its most chaotic title ending of all time. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton rolled into the final race, tied at 369.5 points each. Winner takes all. Hamilton had been cruising most of the day, leading for 57 of 58 laps and looking set for his 8th title. But on lap 53, Nicholas Latifi crashed his Williams. Safety car out. That's when race director Michael Massey made the call that caused complete chaos. On lap 57, he let only 5 lapped cars unlap themselves. Just the ones sitting between Hamilton and Verstappen. Not all the lapped cars, mind you, just those 5. Not exactly by the book. One final lap restart. Verstappen, sitting on fresh rubber, blew past Hamilton at turn 5 like he was driving through traffic. Championship done. 395.5 points to 387.5. Mercedes absolutely lost it. Toto Wolff's radio meltdown became an instant internet legend. No, Michael, no, that is so not right. They protested immediately, screaming about Articles 48.12 and 48.13, safety car rules, apparently violated. The stewards weren't having it. Hamilton didn't mince words. It's been manipulated. Christian Horner shot back with, "It's called a motor race. We went car racing." The internet exploded. Epic drama or straight robbery, depending on your allegiance. Latifi and Massey got death threats because that's apparently where we are now. Hamilton seriously considered walking away from F1 entirely. The FIA investigation took until March 19th, 2022. Human error, they called it, but kept the results anyway. Convenient. Massey got the boot, replaced by Eduardo Freitas and Niels Wittich. New safety car rules, limited team radios, and automated lapped car processes. Mercedes dropped their appeal on December 16th, 2021, focusing on reforms instead, probably the smart play. 3 years later, it's still F1's most argued about finish. Verstappen kept his title, but the whole mess left everyone questioning how the sport handles these moments. One call, one lap, and everything changed. The 2022 Red Bull cost cap breach. The story began when the FIA started digging through the books. In 2021, Formula One put in place cost caps to prevent the sport from turning into a competition where only the richest teams could win. Teams got $145 million to spend on operations, adjusted to $146.2 million for 22 races. The goal was to balance the competition. Smaller teams like Williams shouldn't just come to collect participation trophies. Meanwhile, Red Bull and Mercedes spend money on every little detail. Red Bull had just stolen the 2021 championship from Lewis Hamilton in that wild Abu Dhabi finale. Verstappen won by 8 points. When rumours started swirling about Red Bull overspending, competing teams were not pleased at all. October 10th, 2022, the FIA announced its findings. Red Bull had committed a minor financial breach for 2021, £432,652 over the cap, about $536,500. Not great, but small enough to avoid the major breach category. Here's where it gets interesting. Red Bull's original submission showed they were nearly £2 million over the limit. But after recalculating costs like catering, unused spare parts, and sick pay, the overspend dropped to less than $500,000. The FIA ruled Red Bull acted in good faith, meaning no deliberate cheating. They just misunderstood the new financial regulations. The penalties came fast. A $7 million fine, one of the largest in F1 history, plus a 10% reduction in wind tunnel testing for 12 months, directly impacting their 2023 car development. Christian Horner called it draconian and blamed rival teams for lobbying for harsh punishment. Meanwhile, Toto Wolff was practically doing victory laps, insisting the breach could have decided the championship. Lewis Hamilton chimed in, claiming an extra $300,000 might have given him that 8th title. Red Bull's response? They dominated 2023, winning 21 of 22 races. Those penalties didn't turn out to be so harmful after all. Now we're in 2025, and it's only June, so the season is halfway through. But there's already drama. Red Bull's flexi-wing complaints were no secret. But it got intense when formal accusations reached the FIA. The problems began during the March testing in Bahrain. Pierre Wash was watching McLaren on the straight sections of the track and noticed something that seemed wrong. That rear wing was flexing at high speed, opening like a mini DRS to slice through air, then stiffening back up for corners. Same trick from Azerbaijan 2024. McLaren said it was brilliant engineering. Red Bull said it was cheating. By March 1st, Red Bull had seen enough and dropped an official and accusatory file on the FIA's desk. They wanted factory raids at McLaren's Woking facility and Ferrari's Maranello base. When pressed about what he had seen, Wash told, "The race the wing movement was quite visible." The FIA responded. March 17th brought tougher deflection tests starting at the Chinese Grand Prix. Slot gap movement dropped from 2mm to 0.75mm. Factory inspections followed, all very official. The result? McLaren kept dominating like nothing happened. No penalties, no disqualifications, just stricter rules and a lot of paddock drama. Red Bull's formal objection failed to bring about the major changes it had hoped for. Now it is your turn. Drop a comment below. Which team is going to bend the rules next? And what other F1 scandals did we miss? Hit subscribe if you want more stories about Formula One, and we'll catch you in the next one.